the case of the Vanishing Violin. In the small seaside town of Harmony Bay, music was in the air. The cry of gulls, the sigh of waves, and the sweet, soaring notes from Mr. Linden's violin shop. Mr. Linden was old and kind, and his shop, the Singing Wood, was a magical place filled with the scent of rosin and pine. 3 friends were drawn to the shop like magnets. Clara had perfect pitch. She could name any note she heard and detect the tiniest flaw in a tune. Matteo had a photographic memory. He could recall the exact arrangement of every violin on the wall, every tool on the bench. Eli was the puzzle solver. He could take Clara's sounds and Matteo's pictures and fit them into a story that made sense. Their world tipped upside down on the morning of the Summer Music Festival. The festival's star, a world-famous violinist named Madame Vega, was to play on a priceless ancient violin called the Sunset Stradivarius. It was kept safe in Mr. Linden's special humidity-controlled back room. The day before the festival, it vanished. The back room was locked. The window was locked. The only thing out of place was the faint, lingering smell of salt water and vanilla. On the floor near the empty case was a single, perfect seashell. Police Chief Barnes was stumped. No forced entry. The alarm was off because Mr. Linden was working inside. He stepped out for 10 minutes to get a cup of tea. That's all it took. Madame Vega was distraught. The festival was ruined. Mr. Linden looked heartbroken, as if he'd lost a child. Clara, Matteo, and Eli looked at each other. This was their case. Clue 1, the scent. Clara closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. Salt water, strong, like the harbor at low tide. And vanilla, not food vanilla, like perfume or lotion. Clue 2, the seashell. Matteo picked it up. It was a common oyster shell, but inside, someone had drawn a tiny, intricate musical note in silver ink. It's a message, or a signature. Clue 3, the silence. Eli thought out loud. Mr. Linden steps out for exactly 10 minutes. The thief knew his routine. The alarm was off. They didn't smash and grab. They walked in, took it, and walked out. They had a plan. They made a list of people who knew the routine and loved violins. There was Anya, Mr. Linden's ambitious apprentice, who sometimes smelled of vanilla hand cream. There was Captain Roy, the old ferryman who was always hanging around the shop, talking about how music was the only good. Sound besides the sea. And there was Miss Kwan, the strict festival director, who was furious the valuable instrument was kept in a ramshackle shop. They decided to investigate. Clara and Matteo visited Anya in the workshop. She was sanding a violin back, her eyes red. "I'd never hurt Mr. Linden or his violins," she sniffed. Her hands did smell of vanilla, but on her bench was a detailed schedule of Mr. Linden's tea breaks for the week. "He's forgetful," she explained. "I write it down so I know when to mind the front." Eli went to the docks to find Captain Roy. His boat, the Sea Note, smelled of salt and engine oil. "A tragedy," he boomed. "That violin had a voice like a siren. To lose it to the silence." He seemed genuinely upset. But Eli saw a large, empty, velvet-lined case under a tarp in the boat's cabin. Miss Kwan was in the festival tent, barking orders. "Of course it was stolen. It should have been in a bank vault. I told them." When asked about her whereabouts, she glared. "I was in a 2-hour conference call with the symphony board. You can check the records." Everyone had a motive. Everyone had an alibi. They were stuck. Back at their spot on the pier, Eli stared at the seashell. "The shell is from the harbor. The smell is from the harbor. The thief either came from the water or wants us to think they came from the water." "What if the thief didn't leave by the door?" Matteo said. "What if they went out the window, down to the water?" They rushed back to the shop. The window in the back room was high, overlooking a narrow alley that led to a small, rocky part of the shore. Matteo examined the window ledge. No scratches, no marks, someone didn't climb down. Clara looked at the ground outside. "But someone did stand here recently." She pointed to 2 faint, damp footprints in the dirt, small footprints. Beside them was a drop of something dark. She touched it and sniffed. Rosin, from a violin bow. The pieces snapped together in Eli's mind. The thief didn't come in through the window. They went out to the window to hand it off to someone waiting outside, a partner. They followed the damp footprints. They led to the rocky shore and stopped at a post where boats were tied, Captain Roy's post. They ran to find Chief Barnes and told him their theory. He was skeptical but followed them. They found Captain Roy on his boat, not with the Strad, but carefully polishing a beautiful old violin. "That's not it," Matteo whispered. "The scroll is different." Captain Roy saw them and sighed. "You found me, but you're wrong." He held up the violin. "This is Morning Star. It's mate to sunset. They were made as a pair. Madame Vega only ever cared for one. The other was left to rot in a collection. I borrowed the sunset just for a night, to reunite them, to let them sing together one last time before she sells it off to some private collector after the festival. I was going to put it back before the concert." He pointed to the shell. "The note inside is the first note of the duet they're meant to play. I left it as an apology to the violin." Just then, Anya the apprentice came running down the dock, out of breath. "Captain, you old fool! I told you not to do it!" She turned to the chief. "I figured it out. I saw his empty case. He told me his plan to save the violin. I've been trying to cover for him, to get it back before anyone knew." The mystery was solved, but there was no villain. Only a heartbroken old sailor who loved music too much, and a loyal apprentice trying to protect her mentor's friend. Madame Vega was persuaded to listen to the two violins played together. The harmony brought tears to her eyes. She agreed the pair should never be separated. The festival featured a new duet, and Clara Matteo and Eli sat in the front row, listening. They had solved the mystery not by finding a thief, but by uncovering a story of loyalty and lost music. And as the twin violins sang over the water, they knew that was the very best kind of solution. The end.